Hey everybody, from Windy Acre Bees, snow piles, snow piles, snow piles everywhere. 12 inches of snow here in western Massachusetts today. Some places up to 18 inches, very close by to us. We have nooks and packages arriving in 2 weeks from Georgia, about 500 of them at least. So, people wonder how do you guys do these cold weather installations? Why would you want to do them this time of year? Well, the earlier the better, unfortunately, to hit the honey flow when it starts. And we're just getting done here from a long day of plowing and headed back home to do a video actually that's going to be coming up soon here about doing cold weather installations for your packages specifically, and also you can apply this to your nook boxes as well. And this will be using nook boxes instead of dumping them into your Langstroth boxes, or if you don't have those boxes, how to make your Langstroth box into a nook and help the bees maintain their body temperature, their heat inside of those colonies until the weather breaks, and get feeding them really quick. Our long-range forecast looks like the high 40s for those nook installation days. So, but we have a wet spring ahead, and with the winds that we usually have here this time of year, it just makes things difficult on those bees. So, stay tuned for this video coming up. It'll be a great video especially for new beekeepers, and we'll talk at you in a minute. Hey beekeepers, from Windy Acre Bees out in western Massachusetts. I wanted to talk to you about especially new beekeepers. It's very important that you pay attention to this video. It's about cold weather installations as far as packages are concerned. Now, if you've ordered nooks, that's great. The only things I want to say is when you get your nooks, keep them off the ground. If the weather's not so good and you can't put them into your hive bodies right away, keep them up off the ground, right next to a garage or something where there's no wind around them. Maybe wrap some tar paper around that nook box or something like that, so that sun, when it comes out, it beats against that and helps them keep warm. But as far as packages are concerned, they're already behind an 8 ball because they don't have a lot of resources or any resources like they do in a nook box already. So when they're in nooks, they have brood, they have food, they have drawn comb, but they don't have any of that inside of a package. So basically, just think of like up here in the Northeast, our long-term forecast still does not show any weather break as far as getting towards spring temperature-wise. Nooks and packages coming in by the thousands the last weekend of this month. So we've got about 3 weeks before that happens. And the temperature is only going to be somewhere in the area of 40, 42 degrees during the night and still at or below freezing during the day. Again, we don't know what the wind's going to be like here, what the precipitation is going to be like that weekend that those packages start rolling in. So a little preparation ahead of time right now would be necessary and would help your bees really take off as soon as the weather warms up. So when you're in bee school, you're taught to install your packages like this. You remove the queen, and the first thing I want you to do when you remove that queen, if it's cold out, if it's below 60 degrees, take her, and once she's in that queen cage, put her in your pocket, or if you have someone helping you, have them hang on to her inside of a pocket, your pants pocket or a jacket pocket, or even an inner pocket that's inside your jacket. Keep her warm. Don't just set her over on top of one of these frames or on top of the top cover somewhere and leave her there while you do this. She can die within 5 minutes or so being exposed to that cold. So we don't want to harm her in any way, and we want to try not to harm our bees, the rest of the bees either. So when you do that, they teach you, as far as your packet installations, is to take 2 frames out of the middle. What you should do is block off your entrance. As you can see here in the bottom of this nook box, flip your entrance reducer sideways and block it off 100%. And you're only going to do that temporary, but you don't want bees bailing out of this entrance reducer, bailing out of that hole at 42 degrees outside and it's windy out, and they're never going to come back. They're going to die as soon as they get out of there. So keep that closed up. You are going to lose a couple bees out of the top when you dump them in. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. So you take the queen out, you take the feeder can out of that package cage, and you knock them to the bottom, and you just shake them all right inside of here. If it's cold out, you're going to want to be doing this as fast as you can, but do it fluently. In other words, do it right. You know, if you have to slow down a little bit, you can, but try to do it as fast as you can. And then once you put them in, you're basically going to be, now just pretend that this is all full of frames. You insert 2 frames in the middle. So basically what's going to happen, once you put that lid on, the bees, well, first of all, you got to put your queen in here, and they're going to swarm up around that queen, and they're all going to remain right here in the middle. So you're told to feed your bees, especially the packages, and Nooks both, get your bees fed until the nectar flow starts getting really strong, or they start refusing the sugar water. So let's just say you use a frame feeder. You put them all, everybody in here, and you get your frames put in. You put your frame feeder full of sugar syrup way over here. That's kind of a little bit of an issue right there, because the bees are going to be clustered right here. And if it's cold out, they are not going to move way over here to start feeding. They got to have that sugar water over the top of them. So your top cover should have a hole right in the middle. You can take your feeder jar. It's got the hole. If you use one of these, it's got holes in it right here, and you can fill it full of sugar water, put it on top of that hole that's in your inner cover, and just leave it there like that for them. And so once you do that, then they have direct access right above them to feed on that sugar. As the days warm up, you know, and they're constantly staying, you know, above 50 degrees, they will break cluster and they will move about inside of this box, and they will move over to that frame feeder. There are a bunch of different top feeders that you can buy, that you can use. Just research them on Better Bee or Man Lake, and maybe invest in one of those. It'd be a really good idea, especially for this time of year. So now, another option for you guys to really help these bees is to put them inside of a Nook box and not a full Langstroth hive body, just initially, just for a couple weeks. The reason why I say this is new beekeepers, if you haven't got any drawn comb, then you wind up having a bunch of frames that are empty and look like this. And they're all empty, and you put them all in and you shake the bees in. So here's what happens. You just shook 3 pounds of bees in here. You put some sugar water on top. But we don't know how old those bees are realistically. Now, the bees that are shipped up in the packages are a combination of nurse bees. They're a combination of foragers and workers, plus the queen. And you might even have a couple, 2 or 3 drones in there also. So the queen, initially, when she's released from that queen cage, she's got no place to lay any eggs. So the older bees that are in there within about 2 weeks are going to start dying off and disappearing. So you could be starting to lose 10, 20, 30 bees a day. She's not laying 10, 20, 30 eggs a day because she's got no place to lay eggs. Now, our bees up here that have overwintered have drawn comb, and they've been starting to lay since around the 1st of February, increasing their egg laying as the daylight gets longer and it gets warmer. So the foragers and the bees that are in here drinking that sugar water, they have no place to store it either. They don't have any comb drawn, so that's the first thing they're going to start concentrating on doing. So with the little sugar water that they have, they'll tend to just draw out this kind of funky comb. And this is only one reason why they do this. There are other reasons, but they'll draw their comb out kind of similar to what happened here. And, you know, they're doing the best that they can to draw out comb, but when it's cold out, they just can't do it as well as when it's warmer out and they have a big nectar flow coming in. So even though they draw out a little bit like that, the queen is immediately going to lay some eggs right in there, and hopefully she'll start get going. So that's a little bit of an issue that you'll have to deal with, is not having any drawn comb. So she's not going to be able to keep up initially right away with all the bees that are dying off. To help you with that, I would actually go to a local beekeeper, knock on his or her door, or go to your bee association, and or even where you got the bees from, and say, hey, I have to put a package in, or I just put a package in. This is drawn comb right here, and what I need is, can I borrow 1 or 2 frames of drawn comb just for a couple weeks, and see if they have some old comb that they replaced in frames still, and ask them if they could either buy them or swap, new frames for some of these drawn frames, and put 1, if not, try to get 2 and put them in the middle. That way she can start laying eggs right away. They can start storing some food in there for her and for the brood. And that's going to help you a long ways as far as a package of bees is concerned. So the next step that you can do is grab yourself a Nook box. You don't have to get a screen bottom board. I have one here. I don't buy my screen bottom boards. I make them. But you can buy a screen bottom board, or if you're handy with a saw and some wood, you can make a couple of your own. But you don't have to do that. You can just place this Nook box on top of a flat piece of plywood or something like that, and you can you can drill a small hole right here for an exit, and then in a Nook box. The only thing I don't make is I don't make the boxes themselves. I buy them unassembled and put them together myself. But you can put a little hole in here. If you have an old Nook box, maybe you got a Nook from last year and you saved the box, that's a good thing to use too. If it's miserable out cold-wise, I might even go as far as wrapping a little bit of tar paper around these just for, like I said, just for about 2 or 3 weeks until the weather warms up enough. But by moving, the reason why I'm saying start them off in a Nook box is for this reason, and this is only if it's cold out. Their bees are going to be clustered right here in the middle. Their feeder food is going to be here. Like I said, I don't like using frame feeders off to the side, because they are not going to break cluster in a cold to travel all the way over here to get sugar water in a frame feeder. It's just not going to happen until the temperatures outside get above 50 degrees. So they're just going to remain right here in the middle, and they're not going to go anywhere. So they're trying to keep warm, but all this space that's all void, and there's going to be frames in here, but all this space is going to have no bees, so all that cold air is going to be locked in there, and the bees right here are going to have a harder time keeping warm because of all that cold air that's surrounding them. So my suggestion is to take your frames and place them in a Nook box. You can put 2 on one side or the other, and then dump your bees in here. Again, keep this entrance reducer, or block off that entrance down there so they don't come storming out of there, because they probably won't have a chance to make it back. Excuse me. And dump your bees in here, put your queen in real quick, and then dump your last 2 frames inside here. Now, there is not voids on both sides of these 5 frames that are going to maintain cold air inside of here. The bees are going to be right here in the middle, but all this space in here is going to stay nice and warm from their heat because it's a smaller space. Does that make any sense? It sure does to me. If you can do that, please go ahead and do that. It's really going to help your bees out. I make my inner covers that I use from spring until fall, till last feeding. It's a 1/2-inch piece of sanded plywood with shims stapled to the bottom, and then I drill a 3-inch hole, and I put 1/8-inch hardware cloth or screen, a hardware screen, over the hole like that, and then I place it here on the top of my Nook. And you can see the upper entrance that they have right there where I cut the shim. Their bottom entrance is closed off, and that's the way I'm going to lead it until it warms up and they really start getting active. And then I'm going to place my jar right over the top of the cluster, and that's how you're going to feed your bees. As it warms up, they're going to suck that sugar water down pretty quick. Now, with it being cold outside, that sugar water is going to last. Even if they don't drink it all, it should stay good for about a week. And then after that, as it warms up, you're going to have, even if they leave half full and it's about 4 days has gone by, empty that old sugar water out so it doesn't get moldy, and put fresh sugar water in. So now, I took this a step further. You could also make a migratory cover and do the same thing. If you buy a Nook box, or you have to use your Langstroth box, usually the inner covers come with a hole over it already, so you can still carefully just place that jar up on top of that hole inside of that inner cover, just like that. So I take it a step further to protect that sugar water, and so no weather gets in that hole. And I made these outer boxes. I call them feeder boxes. And I place them on top. Now, you can buy another Nook box, or if you have another Nook box that you can place on top. But basically what it is to do is it's just to protect this feeder. Keeps other bees from getting in here and agitating them. And it also just provides a weather, kind of like a weatherproof area to feed your bees in. The other thing that it does too is if I'm using a frame feeder, whether it's here or inside of a Nook box, I don't have to open up this cover to feed the bees. I can do it right from the top. So frame feeders, you have to, either slide this aside, you got to smoke them out of the way, or you have to pull it off to feed them. This way, this cover stays on here without having to expose them to the elements, and it stays just like that. I place my feeder jar, and whenever I got to empty it out or change that feeder or add more sugar water to that, all I got to do is take my cover off, change it, and throw it back in. I don't have to manipulate the hive or bother them at all. So a great idea to do. I made these out of what they call shiplap. I have a piece here that I can kind of show you. If you don't know what shiplap is, if you worked with wood long enough, you will. But this is what it looks like on the edges. Foot for foot, the shiplap is the cheapest lumber you can buy on the market. Home Depot, I got an 8-foot piece for $8, I think it was. And you can see that it has a tongue here, and then it has this groove kind of a thing, a lip we call it, on the other side. And when it's, before we cut it, you can see how the top here is all flat. Normally, this is what that shiplap looks like. So what I do is I shave that top lip right off on a table saw, and then it's nice and flat so that my inner cover fits nice and flat over it, and there's no gaps for them to get into. So that's what shiplap is. Like I said, they're cheap. If you go and buy 1x8 or 1x10 pieces of plywood, you're going to be paying $20, $25, $30 for an 8-foot piece. Those are $8 a piece, and I can make let's see, 2 pieces, 2 8-footers. I can make at least 3 of these, I believe. So that's it. So now I take my outer cover and I just put it on there. Now again, I make my outer covers. If you don't, if you can't make any outer covers, you're probably going to have to go with a another Nook box or another Langstroth top to place up here if you use this type of feeding system. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the width here of this top cover that I made, the reason why I make them custom is because, I'll show you here in a minute, normally your covers will fit just over the edge of your feeder covers or your inner covers, and they'll fit over the edge of your box. And when you put this on here, you'll see that if you use shiplap, the width right here is wider this way than it is this box here. So my inner covers have to be a little bit wider than your standard inner covers. And that's basically the complete setup. Now, I will leave this here. One thing is this is a small colony. Robbing does happen in the springtime. So if there's other honeybees nearby, they will try to rob this colony out. So I leave this entrance reducer here, and I let them use that entrance to come in and out, until it warms up, until they really get busy and they start really getting built up, where they're strong enough to defend their colony. Then I'll take this right out of there and let them do their thing. So as far as installing packages in cold weather, it's to give you a couple things to think about while you still have a little bit of time yet to before you do install your packages. Again, your Nook boxes, if you get them and if you get them in Nooks, they are going to be just as susceptible because it's only corrugated plastic. Some places do give you an actual wood Nook box that you got to put a deposit down on, so you bring them back, but most places don't. And we just want to help you out with your bees in this cold weather. I know that I'm going to be using these Nook boxes. I have like 5 packages that are going to be coming in to replace bees that were destroyed this winter from a black bear. And this is the way that I'm going to go here. If you have any questions, there's one other thing that I want to say too. Irregardless of what you're using to place your packages in, please take your boxes and your frames and put them inside your house or in your cellar, somewhere that it's warm inside, and keep them there until right at the time that you're going to use them if it's cold out. Imagine a bunch of bees being brought up from 75-degree weather, and these frames are sitting outside because you set your boxes up outside when it was 40 degrees. And so all that equipment is 40 degrees, and now you're going to dump a bunch of bees that were clustered up nice and warm at 90 degrees into 40-degree boxes and 40-degree frames. So take your frames and place them inside where it's nice and warm, and then bring them outside in a plastic bag, or keep them in your Langstroth boxes or your Nook boxes. Keep the whole setup. You're only going to be putting these things and your bees into a single deep, whether it's a Nook or a Langstroth hive. So you're only going to be using one. So warm that whole box, those frames up, and everything downstairs in your basement or in your house before you put them in. So that's all I can really think of as far as cold weather installations. Again, if you only have this and you only have undrawn frames, wrap that box up with some tar paper or maybe some foam board before you install everything in there. That way they have some insulation in the meantime. And again, this is only going to be temporary, but it is sure going to help you save more bees that way. If you got any questions, hit me up in the comment sections, and be more than happy to answer you. I got to get all my covers covered with metal today, and that's what we're going to be doing now. And then these boxes are going to be ready to go for 3 weeks from now. Good luck with everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Hello, beekeepers from Windy Acre Bees out in western Massachusetts. I just recently threw up a video about cold weather installations specifically for packages. I touched a little bit on Nooks as well. And so I was talking about placing your packages into Nook boxes initially, so that they have a section here where they're only staying warm and clustered right here in this section of the Nook box. And there's if you were to take your bees and you were to dump them all in here as a package and then put frames in here, they're all going to cluster right here in the middle with each other. And then you're going to have all this space here and this space here full of cold air, and it's going to make it even harder for them to survive in that giant cold box that's like that. Now remember, these bees are coming up from 75, 80 degrees to 30 to 40 degrees. Doing cold weather package installations is kind of rough on them. So I want to give you a way to do this without having to go out and buy or make Nook boxes. I know as new beekeepers, you probably bought 2 or 3 packages or 2 or 3 Nooks, and then you've bought your Langstroth boxes and your bottom boards and everything else and all your tools. So it does get pretty pricey, and you're like, geez, now I got to go spend more money. Well, no, you really don't. And I want to show you how you can get away without having to spend more money and just use the current equipment that you have. And that's one of the things as a beekeeper, you learn to improvise and make things work. So what I did is what I want to do is I want to take my Langstroth box here, and even though I got Nook boxes, let's just say, I picked up 2 more packages or something, and I don't want to throw them into that full-size box. All I want to do is make partitions for this, and closing off this side of the box and leaving my bees over here. And that's all you got to do. So I have scrap wood from making swarm traps and other hive components that I make for myself. And what I did is I just took, this is one for instance, I took a 1x2 for the top and a 2x2 for the top and a 1x2 for the bottom. And all I did was I attached them to a 1/4-inch piece of Luan, or other words, plywood. And then I cut the notches out right there, similar to, like how my frames would rest in there, so that this partition rests right on the frame of the inside of the box. And so I have the partitions cut on both sides and notched, and they fit in here into my Langstroth box just like that. And I'm going to take these out temporarily and show you that now I have my partition put in there, and it's blocking off from side to side, top to bottom. The partition is made so that it goes all the way to the bottom, so it rests on the top of my screen so that they can't crawl underneath this partition to get to this side of the box. And right here, as you can see, your frames usually sit about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 to 1/18 of an inch below the top of this box, and that's just to keep space between this frame and then the frames in your top box, so they have places to navigate back and forth. But with the partition, we just want to leave it so the partition falls very flush, perfectly flush with the top edge of your box. And now you have a 5-frame nucleus. So what you can do is, for instance, we'll move this over. You're going to take, like they showed you in B school, you're going to take 2 of your frames and you're going to move them aside, and you're going to dump all your Bs in here and leave this right here, and leave that partition right up tight against those frames. Dump all your Bs in here, put your queen cage with your queen in here, just like that. And then all you got to do is just take this partition and just move these frames right up close to each other like you normally would in a Nook box or in your Langstroth hive. Make sure that they're nice and tight against each other, and you want to do that. For some reason this one's giving me a little issue here, but anyways, you want your frames nice right here, nice and tight together. Move your other frame in and then put your partition. Now you're all set, you're all ready to go. Your bees are now all confined to these 5 frames right here. They'll cluster here in the middle around that queen, and then you have your partition right here that keeps them from getting from this side of to this side of the box at all. So the next question is, well, how do they keep from getting into the bottom entrance of the Langstroth box and getting to this side of the box? Well, use your entrance reducer that came with your hive equipment, and your entrance reducer usually looks just like this. It has a larger hole, an entrance hole, and a smaller one, and you can see the bottom of the partition right there. So what I would do is I would take this with the small hole, this side is blocked off, push that all the way in against that partition, okay, as far in as it goes. Now you just have one entrance that goes into this side of your box, and that side is blocked off so that they can't get into this side. And that's it. That's all you got to do. What's nice about this is the partition can be moved anywhere. So probably for a package of bees in cold weather installations, I may just only use 4 frames, which works out fine, because I just move my partition over, make sure it's nice and tight, and now my package is sitting in here. And then what I can do is I can pretend these are all full frames. I can just stick all my frames in here like this, and I'm all set and ready to place in my other frames. I don't know if I can get 5. Yeah, I can get 5 in here. So if I had 4 frames full of bees right here on this side, I have these 5 frames ready to go when I want to start growing my colony. So as this colony grows and it gets full of bees and the weather's better, I can take this partition out, and then I can move, let's see, I can open up some space, and I can checkerboard my undrawn frames or my other frames into the mix, just like that. I can take another frame out, and let's say I wanted to move those frames over. I can put an undrawn frame in there in the middle of the drawn frames, and then I can take my partition and I can put it right back in, and now I can let my bees grow here. And our weather here in the Northeast can stay kind of really crummy right through the end of, almost the end of April. So if my bees will grow, and they will just stay in this area here, and then when they're ready to go grow into more frames, I can just take this partition out, and then I can checkerboard these frames into the middle here. So then I have full Langstroth box ready to go. So the other thing good about partitions, and I'm going to use a different one. Let's say I have a 5 frames right here and I want to keep that 5 frames full of bees and I don't want any bees onto this side. I use a 3/8 piece of plywood most of the time instead. It's got, all it is the plywood is cut to size, and you can see how it's notched out here, and I have a notch here, and it fits the perfect depth. I can slide that in here, and I just have that partition right there. So now again, all of our bees are over here. There's no bees here. Taking a next step further here is I got these 4 frames. If I'm doing splits in the spring, I can use one Langstroth box to do put 2 splits in, or I can have 2 packages in here or 2 nooks in here. And that's the other thing too, real quick. If you get a nook of bees instead of a package, same thing. You don't have any frames in here. What you do is just take your nook and exactly how the frames are in that nook, place them inside this Langstroth hive, and then take that partition and move it over. So you confine all your bees in your nook here. With a nook, they're usually pretty crammed full of bees, so I would probably add an empty frame into the middle, right here into the middle, and just give them 1 extra or 2 extra frames, and then partition them off so that the rest of this box can stay full of cold air and the warm air is going to stay right in here, just like that. Now, going back to your splits, again, same deal. We can take our, we can make a split, and we can put the split inside of here, and we can put a partition in, just like that. And now we have our split in here. I can put I can get ready to put a top cover on, but if I wanted to add, let's just say I was splitting 1 colony and making 3 colonies out of them, I can take the other half of that split and I can put it here on this side of the Langstroth box, just like that. So now I can have 2 colonies of bees here. The only difference you're going to do is you're going to have your entrance here like you normally would, but you don't want a second entrance on this side in the front with that entrance. Make your entrance back here by either probably just drilling out a 1-inch hole in the back so that I have an entrance right here for the back side of this colony, and the entrance for this colony is going to be over here on the front side. And that's it. And again, your splits and queen rearing and all that kind of stuff, you could have this set up where this side is a mating nook and this side is a split that you did. I mean, you know, the possibilities are endless this way just by using partitions. You can take 2 of these pieces of wood, and if you have a small split, or let's just say you catch a little swarm, and I can actually partition off 3 frames if I want to, and then I can take another partition and I can flip it reverse and I can stick it on this side and have, you know, 3, maybe even 4 frames on this side, just like that. And then have my entrance over here for them on this side, and have this entrance here on this side. So now I got 3 frames of bees here from a split I did. I have another split here, and now I let them grow. Now when this little split right here, or this whatever you're putting in here, grows a little bit, I can take this out completely, or even move it over, and then I can take a frame and I can add a frame. I can even add 2 frames depending on the partition that I make. I can either add 2 frames to it. So endless possibilities just using one Langstroth box for 2 different colonies, 2 different packages, 2 different nooks. Works out really good. If I was using this here, if I was just putting 1 package in here or 1 nook in here, and these are my extra frames I'll be using later, I have my feeder board, my top cover, or inner cover, and it goes on just like that. As you can see, it's blocked off here. They can't get in between the top cover and the top of the partition to get to this side of the box. I can place my feeder jar here, and then for me, this is my setup. I can place my feeder jar here, and then I can place my feeder cover and stuff over the top. Now, if you're frame feeding, another big plus to partitions, you can take this partition out, and you can take a frame out and put my partition in, and I can put my frame feeder right inside here. If it doesn't quite fit right here, just take this frame out and move this partition over. But now I have a frame feeder that I can fit inside of here. I have my 5 frames of bees. Once they break cluster, they can crawl over the top, go to this side, and they can get into that frame feeder, and they can start eating out of that frame feeder. And then again, as they grow a little bit, I can move my frame feeder over here. I can slide a couple frames over so that they can grow into these frames. I got propolis on here, that's why they're sticking so much. And then I can throw my frame feeder in here, and now I have these this extra frame, or this extra space, just closed off. At that point, once I get about 7 frames of bees, I just take that frame feeder completely out, and now I fill this in full of frames, checkerboard my frames all the way across, and they're ready to go. And my frame feeder can stay out here on the edge like I normally would if you use frame feeders. I don't, but a lot of people do. But yeah, a lot of endless possibilities using this. Just use your imagination as to how you can double up your equipment and make make one piece of equipment work for 2 packages or 2 nooks or 2 splits. Trying to think, feel like I'm missing something here, but I don't think so. I think I covered all of it. That's pretty much it. Kind of a great idea to do. Gives you a bunch of possibilities. If you have any questions, hit me up in a comment section, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. And I hope this helps you as a new beekeeper to do your cold weather installations. Even if it's not cold and you want to put that package of bees in just a smaller area, great idea to do until they grow. Putting them in too much of a big area deters them a little bit, but this way you can grow as they grow. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Thanks.